You new round here, green boy. Do you have any idea about the things I know, the places I've been, the people I've slaughtered and ripped apart for sport? Yeah, you don't know anything. I've been fighting against hunter loops and fools dodging effect failure for years, boy, and I ain't gonna stop now. Who do you think you are? I've seen the rise and fall of empires, rising up like a Phoenixian cluster, and then spiraling down from a tier 0 format. I've seen shadow games, ages of dragons, I've seen Gumblar loops and summon sorceress and fucking firewall dragon. From the first rescue rabbit activation to alpha tribute Ben 10, I've been doing one thing, boy. Activate polymerization.
Welcome, Custom Car fans. My name is Aurora, and I'm here to present Archetype Spotlight. This ongoing series will see a spotlight shine on some of the hundreds of custom strategies, archetypes, and support that you can find on the server. We'll explore the beloved and the forgotten, the barely viable and the meta-defining, the decks that make EXU, well, EXU. Today's Archetype Spotlight is a war veteran of a deck, being first conceived in a format amidst Wind Up and Macro Rabbit. Let's take a look at Amaranthin's Conqueror. Conqueror is a deck that's had an extensive history, first being made using Yu-Gi-Oh! Card Maker back in 2013, and making an appearance on the forums in early 2015, Conquerors were created with the intent of bringing light to the original Polymerization, a card largely unused by even fusion decks at the time. The deck is multi-attributal, and uses each different permutation of hands and cards to create vastly different boards, forcing you to think 3 steps ahead at every point of decision. Your choice in banished card can affect your end board drastically, often shutting off different opportunities and opening up doors to others. Some hands make Appaloosa pass, some hands end on double the number of disruptions, some hands have follow-up for your next turn, and some hands will fall flat long before then. The deck has only been on EXU for a year or so, and in its time has had a smattering of tops in weeklies and the old Championship series. Its most recent top was a second place finish in Battlegrounds number 9, losing out to the best deck of the format, DDD. Its win rate is at 71% currently, though bear in mind that this is only taking in data from Battlegrounds, as the deck has had no recent matches on the ladder. The biggest hurdle that Conqueror faces when considering its competitive viability is difficulty. It's incredibly easy to misplay, and considering that each move could have potential to ruin your plays 5 moves ahead of where you currently are, it's no wonder that the deck is not only hard to play, but also hard to play against, as the disruption points are anything but linear. With all that out of the way, let's take a look at Amaranthin's deck list. This is the list, and, well, it's certainly playing a lot of Conqueror cards. Let's go through them one by one. First off is Athena, Guardian of the Conquerors, a level 4 light warrior with 1800 attack and 0 defense. If she's summoned, she can add a Conqueror spell or trap from your deck to your hand, and if she uses a fusion material, you can draw 1 card. She ends up being a key consistency piece, and is a definite 3 of in any serious build. Next is Eliane, the Sacred Conqueror, a level 4 light pendulum warrior with 2000 attack and 0 defense. While she'll rarely be a monster on the field, she can add a Conqueror from the graveyard to the hand during the end phase if she was used as a fusion material during that turn. In addition, while in the Pendulum Zone, she can be used as a fusion material as long as you also use a Conqueror. She has a King of the Swamp-like effect while in the Pendulum Zone, allowing her to be used in place of any named fusion material on a monster. This synergizes well with the Conqueror fusions, that each name one of the Conqueror main deck monsters as one of their materials, but it also allows for the inclusion of interesting tech choices from other archetypes that we'll get into later. It's played at 2 because it can be set from the deck by one of the archetypal link monsters, meaning that it's not needed to be hard drawn, and as such we can afford to cut it for cards that we'd rather see in the opener. One of these is Elise, Sword of the Conquerors, a wind warrior level 4 with 1500 attack and 0 defense. During the turn she's normal summoned, you can normal summon another Conqueror, and she can be banished plus 1 more Conqueror from the graveyard to add a Conqueror spell from the deck to the hand. Elise makes it a lot easier for Conqueror to access swarming capabilities, which is why it's good to play 3. After Elise is Flare, Spark of the Conquerors, a level 4 fire warrior with 1900 attack and 0 defense. When summoned, she drains the attack and defense of an opponent's monster by 1000, and can banish herself from the graveyard to revive a different banished Conqueror. This is useful for extension into your combos, and as such it's played at 3. After this is May, Life of the Conquerors, an Earth Warrior level 4 with 1400 attack and no defense. She can tribute herself to special summon a different Conqueror from the deck, changing the summon monster's name to be May, Life of the Conquerors. She can also banish herself and another Conqueror from the graveyard to add a banished Conqueror to your hand. Being an emergency teleport that can access any of our strong on-summon effects, like Athena's, it's no surprise that this is being played at 3. Next is Mayon, Spirit of the Conquerors, a water warrior level 4 with 1600 attack and no defense. She can return 2 banished Conquerors to our graveyard on summon, and she can summon herself from the graveyard if a Conqueror fusion leaves the field. Since Mayon requires more setup than the other Conquerors to make an impact on the game, she's being played at 2 instead of 3. Finally, for the main deck is Persephone, Spear of the Conquerors, a level 4 Dark Warrior with 1700 attack. She sends a Conqueror from the deck to the graveyard on summon, and can banish herself from the graveyard to special summon a Conqueror from the hand. Being a strong extender for the deck that can set up your graveyard for further plays, she is naturally played as a 3 of. The Conqueror spell lineup first and foremost consists of Conqueror Fusion and 3 copies. A Gemknight Fusion-esque card, Conqueror Fusion is an archetypal fusion spell that can return itself to the hand from the graveyard by shuffling 2 banished Conquerors into the deck. After this are 3 copies of a Conqueror's Promise. Due to being able to search for any of the Conqueror monsters, this card adds some much needed consistency, while also adding the ability to close out games with its graveyard effect that allows you to banish it to give a Conqueror 1000 attack. It's never treated as a Conqueror card, however, so you can't search it off Athena. Finally are 2 copies of Hope for the Conquerors. Another fusion spell for the deck, but this time a continuous spell. Once per turn, if you have fusion summon a Conqueror, you can banish materials from your graveyard as well, which can help you to access attributes and names that you wouldn't otherwise be able to use. It can also send itself to the graveyard to fusion summon much like Conqueror Fusion, though the second effect can't be used in conjunction with its first effect, as it won't be on the field to use its first effect. As a result of relying a bit more on setup than Conqueror Fusion to make it use effectively, this is another 2 of. Next is the extra deck, full of one-offs that give the deck its variability. First, the Conqueror Fusions. There's one for each of the main deck Conqueror monsters, and they require that monster as a material, plus 1 Conqueror monster. Conqueror Elise, the Piercing Thornspike, lets you banish a Conqueror from the deck on summon, destroy an opponent's monster it battles at the start of the damage step, and can revive itself from the graveyard by banishing 2 Conquerors with different attributes. Conqueror Femme, the Incinerating Phoenix, is the largest of the Conqueror fusions at 2900 attack. She also gains attack equal to the number of Conquerors in your graveyard times 100, freezes your opponent's effect if she attacks, inflicts piercing damage, and can special summon a destroyed monster to your field a la Goyo Guardian. She'll likely be your primary offensive threat. Conqueror Rose, the Divine Blessing, can special summon a Conqueror back from the graveyard by banishing a different one, and forces your opponent to banish cards from their hand after each card effect during the battle phase. Conqueror Sheeny, the Heartless Reaper, is another of your offensive fusions, inflicting 500 damage to your opponent per Conqueror's declared attack. She also has a pair of effects depending on the ratio of your banished cards to the cards in your graveyard. If you have more cards in your graveyard, all of those cards are unaffected by your opponent's card effects, giving her some good defensive utility. If you have more cards banished than you do in your graveyard, however, she becomes a lot more offensive, gaining 1000 attack and inflicting double damage when attacking monsters. Mythical Conqueror May, the Blooming Sorceress, is the last of the offensive Conquerors, gaining 100 attack for each of your banished Conquerors and having the ability to attack twice while she's boosted. In addition, she can destroy a card on the field on Fusion Summon, or 2 cards if you have more Conquerors banished than there are in your graveyard. Finally, is Mythic Conqueror Mayon if Dueling Book ever decides to let me hover over the damn card. The Dragonic Sorceress, a defensive option that allows you to banish a Conqueror from your hand or graveyard to drop your opponent's monster's attack by 1000 until the next end phase as quick effect. This becomes particularly defensive with her protection that blocks her from being targeted or destroyed by monsters' card effects that have lower attack than her. She can also recur a banished Conqueror once per turn, when your opponent's monsters with low attack activate their effects. The other Conqueror cards in this extra deck are the Link 2 Conqueror Persephone, the Black-Winged Legend, who sets a lane from the deck and can fusion summon for the cost of 1000 life points, and the Link 3 Moon Conqueror Riche, who can special summon a Fusion Conqueror from the graveyard as a quick effect, treating the summon as a fusion summon, and can add Conquerors from your graveyard to your hand with the same attribute as a Conqueror summoned to a zone it points to. The rest of the cards in the deck should be familiar, bar a few exceptions. Reinforcements of the Army and the 2 Pot of Desires have been played for the consistency, while 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 Infinite Impermanence, and the Call by the Grave are being used for disruption and protection. Plasma Fusion is a fusion spell that can be used to fusion summon a fusion monster that lists specific monsters as material. While this might immediately seem worse than Conqueror Fusion for the deck, Plasma Fusion uses 1 monster on the field, then excavate cards from the top of your deck until you excavate another viable monster for a fusion you reveal from your extra deck. And then the other excavated cards get shuffled into the deck and you take 500 for each. This essentially allows you to fusion summon with 1 card from the deck, which is why it's being played, though you always do need to be mindful of how many life points you have left when activating this card, as it can simply kill you. The generic links in this deck are Rooftop Inu for a nice fallback option, Nadegu Neutron Deleting Goliath as spell removal, Cross Sheep for the reborn effect, Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess as negation, and Mech Knight Crusader Avramax to bolster your OTK potential. Raykor, the Tsunami Channeler, is enabled by exactly Iliane, and offers an Omni Negate for a player that can summon it. Shadowed Creeper is another slot filled by an Iliane target, acting as both draw power and an unaffected beat stick. The side is comprised of double Artifact Lancia for the banished decks, triple Nibiru the Primal Being for the combo matchups, 3 Crossout Designator for the hand traps, 3 copies apiece of Forbidden Droplet and Lightning Storm as equalizers when going second, and 1 Dimensional Barrier to deal with a variety of different strategies. Now, let's take a look at a couple of replays that Amaranthin has prepared in order to explain to my particularly pathetic brain how to play a combo deck. So this is the replay that Amaranthin has sent us. He did send me another replay, which is a 2-card combo that ended on Appaloosa plus Fusion in hand. But Conqueror isn't really a deck that can be explained through a 2-card combo, which I didn't understand before I asked Amaranthin to make a 2-card combo for it. So I'll do as he wants, and I'll show the full hand combo. So as Amaranthin says, this is the standard combo, which is Elise plus Persephone, with the ability to go into Shadowed Creeper and maybe Raykor if we can draw into the fusion, or draw into the water Maion. If we can draw into Maion, that's the right word. So we're going to start off by normal summoning Elise and then normal summoning Persephone, Spear of the Conquerors. Persephone's effect is going to activate to send the Flare from the deck to the graveyard. Then we're going to link 2 and summon the Persephone, Black Winged Legend. And then we're going to use the effect of the Persephone to place the Iliane from the deck. Now the reason why we have the ability to go into the Shadowed Creeper and the Raykor possibly is because we have drawn the other Iliane, which is quite useful because it allows us to go into multiple different fusions. Since we've already got pretty much everything we want to see out of our deck, apart from maybe just Athena, we're now going to activate Pot of Desires, and we're going to banish the top 10 cards of our deck manually. I don't think Amaranthin knows that there's a button that allows Desires to do that. And then we're going to draw 2 cards, and we see 2 excellent draws off the top, the Reinforcement of the Army and the Athena. We're then going to activate the Reinforcement of the Army to add the Maion, Spirit of the Conquerors, which is going to allow us to access Raykor, which is an Omni Negate, which is very useful. We're then going to use the effect in the graveyard of Persephone, Spirit of the Conquerors, banishing her from the graveyard to special summon the Athena from the hand. This means we essentially don't need to go through the Thorn Spike line, which allows us to banish something different and special summon something different with the effect of Flare later. Athena's effect is going to add the Conqueror Fusion from the deck to the hand, and then we're going to be using the Persephone's effect, allowing us to pay 1,000 life points, fusing herself, no, not fusing herself, using Iliane from the Pendulum Zone and the Persephone from the hand to summon the Conqueror Elise, the Piercing Thorn Spike. We're then going to use the effect of Piercing Thorn Spike to banish from the deck the May, and then we're going to use the effect of Flare in the graveyard, as Amaranthin says. Banishing the May basically gives us all names in rotation. We're going to banish the Flare to special summon the May, and then we're going to be using... what are we using now? Amaranthin really likes looking at the graveyard here. Using the effect of the Elise, banishing herself and the Persephone from the graveyard. And we're going to be adding from the deck to the hand the Hope of the Conquerors. Next, we're going to be activating Conqueror Fusion, fusing together the Maion plus the May from the field, not even using the May's effect. And we're going to special summon the Mythical Conqueror May, the Blossoming Sorceress. It's a difficult name to read when you can't see half of it because it's too small. Obviously, we're not going to be using this card's effect on summon. Instead, we're going to be linking together these two to summon the Cross Sheep. And then we're going to be using the effect of the Mayon Spirit of the Conquerors, special summoning herself back from the graveyard, since a Conqueror fusion we controlled was sent to the graveyard, being that Elise the Thornspike. Then we're going to use the effect of the Mayon returning two banished Conquerors back to the graveyard, which is going to be the Elise and the Flare. That's going to basically give us more plays with Hope of the Conquerors later. And then we're going to use the effect of the Conqueror Fusion, I imagine so, because we can use the Conqueror Fusion with the newly returned Conquerors in our graveyard alongside the Hope of the Conquerors in order to fusion summon later. By returning these two Persephones back into the deck, we can add this Conqueror Fusion back to our hand, and then we can activate this Hope of the Conqueror. Oh, we're going to first activate Eliane, the Sacred Conqueror, activate the Conqueror Fusion, and shuffle back that Mayon, as she does that whenever she's summoned back from the graveyard to prevent herself from being infinitely looped turn after turn. And the Eliane, Sacred Conqueror, from the Pendulum Zone, in order to summon Raykor, the Tsunami Channeler, which essentially just constitutes as one negate. We're then going to be using the effect of Cross Sheep, special summon a level 4 back from the graveyard, and then we're going to use the Hope of the Conquerors, fusing again, using these two, in order to summon the Conqueror Rose, the Divine Blessing. Our Divine Blessing. This will allow us to trigger Athena finally to draw a card, which is a very funny draw because it basically gives us an extra bit of extension on the follow-up. We're then going to use the effect of the Athena, or the Athena Fusion, to banish a Conqueror from the graveyard and special summon one with a different attribute from the... No, just a different Conqueror from the graveyard. That'd be the Conqueror Persephone, Blackwing Legend, and then that allows us to use 1, 2, and 3 in order to summon an Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess at 3 materials, and then use the effect of Conqueror Elise, the Piercing Thornspike, banishing 2 from the graveyard to special summon herself from the graveyard. She doesn't also banish herself, don't worry about that. And then we're going to link those two to summon the Moon Conqueror Riche. Delightful lady. May, Life of the Conquerors, is going to activate now. What does she do again? So many effects. You can target one of your banished Conqueror cards and banish this card and a Conqueror from your grave. Add that target to your hand. So this is going to give us more follow-up for the next turn. She's going to target the Elise because we have this Athena in the hand, which basically gives us a full combo on the next turn. So this is 3 mat. So as Amaranthus says, this is 3 mat Appaloosa, an Omni Negate Raykor Fusion, and a pop 2 on the opponent's turn because we have the Mythical Channeler May. Obviously, this pops a card or 2 if there are more Conquerors banished than in your graveyard, which there are because it only counts Conqueror monsters, not Conqueror spells and traps. And even though this usually only activates on Fusion Summon, Moon Conqueror Riche's effect allows you to special summon a Conqueror back from the graveyard, and that summon is treated as a Fusion Summon. We recycle the Link 2 and the Fusions back with the Fusion spell from the graveyard next turn, and in the end phase, Eliane will recover another Conqueror via her effect, which will be this second copy of Athena, so we wouldn't even need to draw into an Athena. This is essentially a god hand. Now let's see if we can replicate this kind of success in a duel.
So this is a replay against Sox, who is our database manager and all-round just a really brilliant guy. All it takes is one bad day to become an Altergeist player. At least he hasn't drawn the greatest hand. The only point of interruption in his hand during my turn is this Infinite Impermanence over here, and I am going first. I've drawn pretty well. I've drawn Athena plus Conqueror's Promise, plus Conqueror Fusion, plus Plasma Fusion, which if I can get lucky, will really help. I also forgot to watch Amaranthin's replays before I did this duel. So don't be too hard on me, okay? Combo deck is hard. So we're going to go to standby main here, and we're going to start off by activating Conqueror's Promise. I thought it might as well be fine just to get this one out of the way, since we can probably do something with just Athena on her own. In hindsight, no. I should have just summoned Athena first, and then activated Conqueror's Promise, but activating Conqueror's Promise first allows us to go into Elise. So we're going to be grabbing the Elise here first, and then we're going to normal summon the Elise, and then use the Elise to summon the Athena. The Athena will activate the effect in order to search, but Infinite Impermanence will stop that. You know, it just do be like that sometimes. So Athena's not going to search, instead we're going to activate Plasma Fusion, and we're going to reveal the Thornspike. So any Conqueror off the top pretty much does this perfectly as we want to. The best one I want to see is probably Flare in this scenario, because Flare can then banish itself from the graveyard to special summon a banished Conqueror monster. So basically that's like the aim here, but any, like even Maion is pretty good. So yeah, just want to see a Conqueror. Gets the go ahead from Sock. Oh. This, gold fingers, I'm telling you, gold fingers. Sometimes you're just luckier than your opponent. We're going to fuse together the Elise Sword of the Conquerors with the lovely little Flare in the graveyard in order to summon the Conqueror Elise, the Piercing Thorn Spike. Obviously, this completely sets up the Flare because of the effect of Conqueror Elise, the Piercing Thorn Spike. We're going to banish from the deck Persephone, because we haven't used Persephone yet. We're then going to activate the effect of Flare, Spark of the Conquerors, banishing her from the graveyard to special summon back the Persephone. We're then going to use the effect of the Persephone to send from the deck to the graveyard. I believe it's Maion here. Yes, it's Maion, because Maion has an effect when we send this Elise to the graveyard. We're going to special summon the Persephone. Then we're going to activate the effect of the Persephone and forget to chain the Maion, because I tunneled on getting the Elaine. That was basically the entire idea by sending Maion to the graveyard. Sock is not scared of my magic words, but he lets me anyway because he's a lovely guy. He's a lovely guy. Maion comes back, and then we're going to not use the effect of Maion because we don't have 2 banished Conqueror cards to return to the graveyard. But that's fine because Maion's effect actually isn't a hard once per turn, or at least her first effect isn't. We've drawn into a what did we draw into? Oh no, we didn't draw into anything yet because Athena only activates off of fusion material. We're then going to use the effect of the Conqueror Persephone, and we're going to fuse together the Maion with the... No, we're going to fuse together these two because Conqueror Persephone can only summon a Conqueror fusion monster. So we're going to fuse together Conqueror Persephone and Persephone, Spear of the Conquerors, in order to fusion summon the Conqueror Shini, the Heartless Reaper. This is going to allow us to protect our graveyard from effects at the moment. Then we're going to activate the Conqueror Fusion and fuse together the Maion, which returns back into the deck, and the Elaine to special summon the Raykor. So I now realize that I forgot to shuffle my deck. Don't forget to shuffle your deck, kids. Don't forget to shuffle your deck. In any case, Raykor here is absolutely legendary because off the top, Sock top decks Altergeist Meluseek, which obviously he's going to normal summon and then attack directly with. And while Raykor's in defense position, all monsters your opponent controls lose 900 attack and defense. So Meluseek doesn't attack on doesn't activate its effect to send a card to the graveyard on battling. It sends a card to the graveyard upon inflicting damage, and no damage has been inflicted. Yep, reading. We're going to send this Meluseek to the graveyard and special summon a Linkuriboh, and then we're going to activate the Meluseek, which of course we're going to Ash because why wouldn't we? We're going to set 3 cards, and then we're going to pass the turn. We're going to draw into the... Just ignore the fact that I didn't shuffle the deck. Just let's imagine, for just drama's sake, that this was a magical top deck that, like, it's not even really that great. Like, Athena, I think, would have been a better card in this scenario. Elaine would definitely have been a better card in this scenario because Elaine is busted. Yeah, just... This could really be any Conqueror. The fact that it's Maion just changes our lines a little bit. So imagine that we drew into Maion. I didn't stack it on purpose. Well, of course I stacked it on purpose, but then I was going to shuffle into... Oh. This is a SEMO progression series, one moment. We're going to use the effect of Elise, the Thorn Spike from the graveyard, banishing 2 Conquerors from the graveyard special summoner, which is going to be met by a Torrential Tribute, which of course I have to Raykor. If I don't Raykor this, then otherwise Raykor's not going to get a negate, so it's obviously the card I have to negate. We're then going to use the effect of Elise to banish herself and the Persephone from the graveyard in order to add a Conqueror spell to our hand, which is going to be the Hope of the Conquerors. Obviously, we're doing this because we already have the Conqueror Fusion in the graveyard, which we can then use.
in conjunction with the Hope of the Conquerors to banish cards from our graveyard. We're going to be using the effect of the Conqueror Fusion in the graveyard, shuffling back the Athena and the Flare. Do I remember to shuffle these ones? I do. I did remember to shuffle those ones, and the Conqueror Fusion will return it to my hand. We're then going to normal summon the Mayon, declare her effect, which is going to be met, I believe, with the second Torrential Tribute. No, Sock is saving it, high rolling me. Yeah. We're going to return the Elise and the Persephone back to the graveyard, then we're going to activate the Conqueror Fusion, and I believe we're just going to banish them again. We're going to banish the Persephone, and we're going to send the Mayon to the graveyard, and we're going to be summoning the Mythical Conqueror Mayon. Oh, my mic is right in front of my face and I can barely see what that card's name is. Mythical Conqueror Mayon, the Dragonic Songstress. I'm getting my glasses prescription in like 5 days. If this didn't show it, I don't know what will. The second Torrential Tribute is going to be activated right now, and I have no answer to that. The only thing I could do is trigger this Mayon, but it doesn't do anything, and so I just decide there's no point. I'll just let everything go to the graveyard. I still have plays even with these cards going to the graveyard anyway, because I can, of course, activate the Mayon. Since a Conqueror Fusion left my field, I can special summon her, and then I can use her effect. Because I have banished Conquerors, they can return to the graveyard. And one of those is Elise, which I have already used this turn, but still, it's a really good card. End of main, I'm going to just attack directly with the Mayon, Spirit of the Conquerors, which is going to inflict 1600 points of damage and allow me to end the turn on a not-so-nice board. They're going to Soccer's going to draw into Protocol, which doesn't actually do much here. So this Judgment is going to have to try and go all the way. We're going to draw a card, and it's going to be the Persephone, Spear of the Conquerors, which is a really, really good top deck. I think now I got suspicious that I hadn't shuffled my deck, because this was one of the cards that I put into my deck. But we did see I shuffled into the deck the Persephone and the Athena. Flare. It was Flare that I shuffled into my deck. So it can happen. You can draw the same card. It is possible. Conqueror Elise is going to activate from the graveyard, and we're going to banish. I think we're banishing the two fusions here. Yep. We're going to be banishing the two fusions because I'm finding myself running out of options in the extra deck. So what better thing to do than to put them right back? We're going to use the effect of the Conqueror Fusion, and we're going to put back the Conqueror Persephone and the, is it going to be, yes, it is going to be the Shini. Because the Mayon Fusion really isn't that great. It's a defensive option, and we're definitely in a winning position at the moment. We're going to normal summon the Persephone, Spear of the Conquerors, and we're going to declare its effect, which is going to go through, and we're going to send from the deck to the graveyard the Flare. This is almost always the correct send. At the moment, we can't really use the Flare because we don't have a great target for it. We don't have any targets for it, since it has to be a banished level 4 Conqueror. You also might realize that I've been missing my Elaines during the end phase. I forgot. So we're going to be using the effect of Persephone. What's effect? Oh, it's the Conqueror Fusion being activated, which is going to be met by the Judgment. Little bit strange Judgment, considering how we have game on board. I decide that I want to play a little bit because I don't know what this last set is, and I do kind of want to remove it because it is Altergeist. You know, Battle Traps aren't something that I would put out of an Altergeist player's reach. So I'm going to go straight into this Persephone here, and I'm going to set as a scale from my deck, or from the face-up extra deck, as Persephone can do that, the Eliane. Then I'm going to be using the Persephone, and I'm going to fuse using the Eliane and the Persephone to summon the May, the Sacred May, the Mythical Conqueror. It looks so much like Channeler. I need glasses. The Mythical Conqueror May, the Blooming Sorceress. And then I'm going to be using her effect to pop the back row, and then Sock is going to concede, obviously knowing I have game on board.
Overall, despite being a combo deck and far too smart for my incredibly small brain, I feel like I actually started to have a grasp on the deck by the end of it. The lines almost seemed to spread out in front of me, and I saw how to get to the different end bosses, though I may have misplayed a lot. Amaranthan, if you're watching this, I hope those possible misplays don't make you cringe, because that would be bad for viewer retention. That's it for today's Archetype Spotlight. Please be sure to like the video if you enjoyed, tell us what you thought down in the comments, and subscribe if you want to see more content.
Remember to turn on the notification bell as well, so you won't miss a single upload. There is a link down in the description to join our Discord server, where you too can explore a vast array of cards we have to offer, play competitively or casually, and chat with other custom card creators around the world. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.